What's up, legends? It's Ando here, and I'm stoked to be bringing you some Australian content today from none other than Perth's very own Chaos Divine. The lad's 2011 groundbreaking release, The Human Connection, raised the bar for not just the Australian prog metal scene, but also the international scene. An album this incredible deserves nothing more than a 2-hour deep dive with fantastic interviews from Dave, Mike, Simon, Ryan, and Tim. I am mindful though, if you're wanting to take bite-sized chunks of this epic interview for such an epic album, I've broken it down into chapters for each of the 5 band members. Not only have the Gents and Chaos Divine shaped my music tastes over the years, I want to give them a special shout out for the human connection that's kept Dave, Mike, Ryan and Simon together since before the band was founded in 2006. Tim's reasons for why him and the boys do what they do is featured in this interview and is a must-see for long-time Chaos Divine fans and newcomers alike. You'll hear me say many times over in this interview just how much of a pleasure, honour and privilege it is to catch up with the guys in Chaos Divine, to not just find out what the human connection means to them, but to also find out about their start-to-finish performance of the album in its entirety on Feb 25 at Badlands Bar. But first up, we're going to take you all the way back 13 years to 2010 with some footage of the boys recording The Human Connection at Underground Studios. So, without further ado, let the divine chaos commence. So divine, that procrastination, now waste of the mind, it's barely survival, this futility, life begins with an art, your will so complete. All I want is someone to be anything, 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 that's all I want. This life of genius calling you to come from the light. Never to disappoint.
Oh yeah, it's that 12 string, go. How fucking sick eye. How fucking sick eye. That was fucking sick eye.
Dave, thanks for joining us today on the AndoVocals podcast. Really appreciate it, mate.
Thanks for having me.
So can you please talk about your involvement in the songwriting process of The Human Connection?
Okay, so The Human Connection, obviously our third release.
Yes.
Probably worthwhile going back before that. So, ratio, half the songs were probably written by the time I joined the band.
And that band was called The Void before it was Chaos Divine?
It was, yeah. Yep. And the band naming, we were going to be called Chaos Shifter for a while, and that I was like, yeah, it sounds like a gear stick kind of thing, and we went back and forth, and eventually came up with Chaos Divine. So I didn't have a huge amount of involvement in music writing in that album.
Yep.
Obviously still did all the lyrics and most of the vocal melodies and all the rest of it. Probably had a bit more involvement in Avalon. But Avalon, we brought in a producer kind of at the last, well, not the last minute, but after we'd written all the songs, and then we kind of chopped and changed a lot. And I had a really terrible time during Avalon. wasn't a good experience doing that record just because of the way it was. I felt butchered.
You wouldn't hear that, like.
Oh, I mean, even the way. So, I'm not a big fan of tuning kind of stuff.
Fair call.
But that album to me, like they tuned it a lot, and I feels unnatural when I listen to that song. I'm like, oh, that album, I'm like, just doesn't sound like me. But the Human Connection, I probably had a fair bit to do in the music writing process. Obviously, for me, my dad died at the beginning of 2010 in a diving accident, but he died doing what he loved. He was a keen diver, marine archaeologist kind of dude. So he was in the water when he died. So it's as good as it could be, I guess.
And your dad's name?
Graham. Yeah. Yep. But I guess because of that, basically the whole album lyrically, the majority of the album, I think 99% of it, is lyric-wise about dad or growing up or something to do with
the human connection.
The human connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think probably like more so than any of the other albums besides maybe our latest album, which for me is kind of the Human Connection Part 2, because the Human Connection
legacies
I'm talking about. So Human Connection is kind of the relationship with me and my dad.
Yes.
And Legacies is the relationship with me and my son.
Right. Fantastic.
So it's kind of come full circle. Again, not every song is about that, but
I have to say, now that I'm a dad myself, One Door hits so much harder.
So One Door was probably one of the first songs lyrically that I put down after Dad had passed, and Beautiful Abyss was, I think, the very last song that I'd put down. And at that time I was like, I don't want to write anymore about dad stuff. I don't want to write anymore. But it just kept coming.
Part of the grieving process.
It totally was. It totally was part of the grieving process. Even a song like Silence, for example. I don't like going too detailed into lyrics because I like people to kind of take their own meaning from it.
Sure.
But Silence, the inspiration for Silence was around basically, when something terrible happens to you and everyone comes out of the woodworks, let me know if I can do anything for you, kind of thing. But then when you call someone up that has given you that offer, there's often
silence.
The offer is just aesthetics. So I didn't want to write any more about the whole grieving stuff, but Beautiful Abyss came out, and I guess it's nice that, so One Door is obviously, pretty downer song, kind of the only way to see you again is to die or to kill yourself, kind of thing.
And the idea of writhing through the night of his passing.
Yeah.
Tough stuff, man.
Whereas, Beautiful Abyss is the flip side. It's kind of, trying to take a positive spin on it as much as you can. So.
And celebrating the legacy of your father.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting story, and you might want to speak to Tim about this, but my dad was actually one of Tim's teachers in high school.
Oh, wow. Which school?
At South Freo.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a small country.
Perth is very small. There's no 6 degrees of separation.
No, it's like 1.5. Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So your involvement in the songwriting in The Human Connection basically shaped the album, in my view.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just had it was a whole nother level than the 2 albums beforehand. Yeah. And since then, I've been a lot more involved in the writing process.
It shows, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah. So
I'll take that as a positive.
Well, what I love about The Human Connection is it really was that sort of stepping stone. So that you listen to an album like Avalon, and it's got so much anger, and it's a really mosh pit friendly kind of album. whereas the Human Connection is that next step up.
Yeah, I think Sim and Ryan need to take some credit because they sacrificed their, I'm an amazing guitarist for the song. So
Okay.
In the previous albums, it was, let's just write the best guitar riff that we can, the coolest riff, and then it's, Dave, you can do something over the top of it.
Yeah.
But at some point in your songwriting journey, when you want to make the best song, sometimes you've got to sacrifice a bit of I'm an amazing guitarist for let's have a song that has some good melodies and, works together as a song.
As a vocalist myself, listening to the album, I'm like, how does he even come up with this stuff? It's just so creative.
You want to know how I come up with it? So basically, most of my melodies, if there's a riff or something that I'm working with, I will get a copy of the riff, get a copy of that section, put it on loop, and just drive. Go in my car and I just drive.
Yeah.
And I just sing over the top of it, and I have like a little dictaphone or whatever, and just record. And I've got a good idea, I'll record that. When you've got the melody, and most time it's just scatting stuff,
Yep. Yeah, totally. You don't write the lyrics for the
No.
actual song. You just write the vocal arrangement.
Sometimes there's the odd case where a word or something will be in that scat, and that is the basis. That's the key to writing the rest of the song.
Beautiful.
That probably happens more often than not, actually.
Oh, that's sensational.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly coming from a vocalist perspective, it's just great to find out how that creative process does flow.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, it can be quite an introverted process where, you are doing that sort of stuff in your own car.
Yeah.
Then other moments, you sort of look at Carnival and the way they wrote Fade.
Yeah.
And that was all done in the jam room.
Yeah. Like screaming stuff, I find it pretty easy to come up with in the jam room. But
Yeah, because there's a rhythm.
yeah,
But something that requires a little bit more feel.
yeah, it's hard in a rehearsal room. Yeah.
And very much an introvert's type
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Definitely.
My understanding is that you recorded the album at Underground Studios in Booragoon.
Yep.
Are you a Booragoon local?
I am.
Yeah, right.
It was like, so, like I said, with Beautiful Abyss, writing that song last, I would, my parents' house is in Booragoon.
Yes.
So I was basically going back there, writing Beautiful Abyss, ride my bike to the studio, put some vocals down, go back, write some more, go in,
And riding the bike would have been good for the lung capacity, doing the vocals, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I was doing, I'd just started doing, well, not just, probably a year before that, started doing some vocal lessons. So, I had my little MP3 player with my vocal warm-ups and stuff. And
Sure.
I'd ride my bike and do my vocal warm-ups on the way kind of thing, People riding around probably going, what the hell is this guy doing?
Talking about Human Connection, can you tell me about how Jens Bogren became involved in the overall production with his mixing and mastering? What was the link there?
I think we just like what we heard, with Opeth. And we thought, hey, let's send him an email and see what happens. We kind of weren't really expecting that we'd get a response kind of thing. But we did, and since then, like Voyager used them and stuff afterwards. I think we looked at using him again for Colliding Skies, and the price had skyrocketed. So
He was beyond your reach.
He was beyond our reach, but we've done well with others. Yeah.
Yeah, far out. It's just an amazing production on the Human Connection.
Yeah, I mean, it's the essence of wetness. Like it's really.
So, Dave, with the recording and the mixing and the mastering process, is there anything that really sticks out to you as part of the production of the Human Connection?
Unlike everything before and everything since, the Human Connection is the only album where we have recorded everything in a studio. So basically Ratio, we recorded the drums at some place with Roland Lim was.
Yep,
I
remember him.
And then everything else was recorded in Ryan's bedroom. With like guitars was, I play a bit of guitar. I just got a GT8, and basically like all the solos were done with my GT8, like direct kind of stuff. Then Avalon, the drums were done over in Sydney, and then everything else was done at Simon's place, like everything, all the vocals, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Whereas the Human Connection, everything was done underground. Everything was done. Edit, vocals, everything.
In Booragoon, Western Australia.
Thanks to Garbo. But yeah, everything else since then, vocals have gone back to the bedroom.
Can you tell me about your reaction to when you first held this in your hands after the pressing?
Pretty proud. I remember the design process for the album cover. I remember Ryan's, because Ryan is our artist. The original design that he had, it was like this butterfly thing, which I actually loved. Like I thought it was awesome. It's like a butterfly that was faces or something. And then he had this idea. Generally, when Ryan's doing his art, he'll have kind of a graphical idea, like an aesthetic idea. So he had, this kind of light, kind of patterny idea for this one. And then came up with the faces. And originally the faces were like face to face. And in my mind, this is Dad and me kind of thing.
Yes.
And I was like, can we rotate it? Because originally it was like this, and I was like, they're kissing, right? I don't want that to be the Human Connection that we're talking about. So, rotate it and have the kind of the minds and the energy, the spirituality between the two and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it was a pretty proud moment when this one was done.
After doing the launch show at the Rosemount in 2011, where did you embark to from there?
I actually embarked to the Narrows Bridge, where I vomited my guts up. So I remember driving home from the gig, and I'd drunk like 2 bottles of red wine, one on stage and one afterwards, and I had to, the missus was driving me back to her place, and
the fishies in the Swan got a little bit of a taste of red wine.
Yeah, they did. They loved the Merlot. We did end up, after that, doing a fair bit of touring over east. A lot of gigs at the ESPY. We had so many gigs at the ESPY, were like one after the other, which the ESPY is, I think, probably one of the coolest venues to play in Australia. That's not like, playing at the Optus Stadium kind of thing, as a not the biggest band in the world, it is a really, really cool venue to play at.
So Dave, tell us all about the upcoming rebirth of the Human Connection.
It's surprisingly been pretty easy to relearn some of these songs. Like I was really expecting some of the songs that we basically might have played once or twice when the album had first come out to be really really difficult, but it's just been super easy, and Tim has done what Tim does, and ultimate professional, learns the songs, mate. He knows the songs better than the other guys in the band. It's amazing.
So Dave, can you please do me the honour of signing my copy of The Human Connection?
Only after I sign your boobs.
There we are, signed by Dave. Thank you so much, brother.
I don't want to see that on any insurance forms, anything, all right?
Thanks, brother.
Thanks for having us.
Escaping, there's only one door.
You're vibrating the camera with you.
Yeah!
Is that chorus over?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Now I am fucked. Probably a good idea. Kit Kat.
So, Mike, thank you so much for joining me on the AndoVocals podcast. It's a pleasure, an honour and a privilege to have you on.
Great, yeah, glad to be here.
So please, tell us about your involvement in the songwriting of The Human Connection.
I guess we sort of write in a few different ways as a band. So I guess predominantly sort of guitars first. And then I kind of like get some of the drum feel going, and then I kind of sort of lock in with that. Being a bass player, I kind of want to try and, hit all the kicks and do slides and all the snares.
That proper rhythm section, right?
Got to lock in, right? So
beautiful.
And I guess, that's something we learned on like the previous record and stuff like that, and we've sort of taken forward into every other record we've done. We definitely sort of put more emphasis on getting that groove locked in from sort of mine and the drummer, like Tim's side of things, and Ben at the time. And then let the guitars do all the cool stuff. I'm happy to lay back. If that makes sense.
So, Mike, do you have any memories of the shows that you were playing in the lead up to the launch of The Human Connection?
I think at that point we were on the go. So we'd released a record previously, sort of, I think it was 2 years before or a year before, and we're in the gig scene where we're kind of getting every opportunity we could take and playing. I think we played a few gigs with Voyager at that time. We were doing something, we got a big day out during that period as well. And just lots of stuff. We were travelling over east a bit as well, off the back of the first record, and sort of we're playing some of the new songs in those gigs. So, obviously the scene was amps and Rosemount, and, over east was like the SB and stuff, and I think the White Stag at that point, I think in Sydney. That was pretty fun.
So, Mike, you recorded the album at Underground Studios in Booragoon. Yeah. Can you tell me about your memories of that process?
So, that was the first actual studio time we ever had. So the previous record, we'd just done drums over at Sing Sing in Melbourne, Sydney. And this was the first opportunity we had, like, as a real band, as the whole band, to actually go in there for, I think it was a month straight, and just like knock it out. So we had 10 tracks ready to go, and we just sort of got in there and just sort of made it happen. And just, I think it was 6 days a week, we were just in there just grinding it out. But as I say, it was the first place first time we really got studio time as a whole band. We got access to like guitars, we got access to multiple drum kits, like we had the works, just different cabs, different heads, and just got to experiment. A good thing about that at the time, I think, was that some of the songs weren't quite fleshed out yet, so they were there, but there might have been bits that we wanted to rearrange and stuff like that. And we had that kind of opportunity in there with like all the tools to really just get the best sort of outcome. And that was like a brand new experience. And like to this day, we've gone there for every record to record drums minimum. So we're always there. That's like sort of it's our home base.
Fantastic.
Cool.
So my understanding is that Jens Bogren placed a lot of emphasis on the bass sound in The Human Connection.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, sort of, if you think of his work, working with Opeth and the likes and Catatonia and stuff like that, that's sort of, you can hear that in his mixes. And I think we went down that direction of sort of not choosing him, but he was available at the right time, and we got sort of access to him. So we kind of knew what we were going to get, like sort of as a piece, and we just sort of made sure that we gave him enough material and enough quality sort of stuff to really work with and really bring that out in the mix. It was kind of pretty cool getting, we idolized those bands and stuff like that, and we've seen them live and stuff, and and to go and get a mix from a dude like that, this is just like, it feel pretty cool. And then the results speak for itself. That record just sounded great, and other Perth bands I think have followed along and also sort of had access to that.
Yeah, I think Voyager worked.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so it definitely, not a trend, but I mean, that's the big music at the time. So people are going to go looking for those people to produce, just like Forrester is like the big now. So, just having access to people like that's pretty awesome. I mean, today it's a bit more accessible. You can just hit him up with a DM. Back then it's like, formal email. Will you please work with me?
Yeah, wow.
So, but yeah, it was cool. I was like, pretty good to actually have that opportunity.
Yeah, my understanding is that, the bass was really not existent in the other albums. Then coming into...
Yeah. It's just a bit of like, not immaturity, but just like not having the knowledge at that point in time to really know how to get it in there and how to get it big. So, and it's become more prominent in the records to follow. So we definitely keep learning and that's part of the oomph, Yeah, you need that kind of elevation sometimes. I mean, I guess going to the studio, once you get access to gear and you get access to better equipment, you inevitably start churning out better tone and you get a better product at the end. So, and then you got to, people that can really mix and master. Like specifically your genre of music, like that's super important, is to get guys that are and girls that are in a sort of a like field. Otherwise you might get stuck in like a pop kind of vibe thing when you're actually in a metal band, or vice versa. So I think that was a big thing from Human Connection onwards, was just paying more attention to that and that's me with gear as well. I started buying better stuff and borrowing better amps for recording and stuff like that. So it's just something that sort of matured, really wanting the fatter tone. Beautiful, kind of where it was at. Like
fantastic,
bigger,
more rounded.
Yeah,
beautiful.
So yeah, it's good.
Is there anything that really stands out to you, like a memory of the recording, the mixing, the mastering process at all?
When you listen back to something you've just done, and maybe whatever, say it was like Abyss, for example, that song, I mean, was kind of laid out to us by Simon, I think a couple of weeks before heading into the studio. It was a late edition. I kind of just got in there, and like getting to the point where you're like hearing it back through the desk and through the monitors, and you're like, oh man, fucking song's pretty good. And like, had we have recorded a month earlier, wouldn't be on the record.
Yeah, wow.
And that song's, we went on and played it a long time and did a remix with it with the Africa cover and stuff like that. So it's had quite a long journey in itself. But like, I think hearing back tracks for the first time, like in their, 90% state, that's cool. And you get the old goosebumps going and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So it's just hitting those cool sections, and like you might find a section that just like hums once you hear it back. You're like, oh my God, didn't realize that was going to end up like that.
Yeah, wow.
That's kind of cool.
So this is Beautiful Abyss you're talking about.
Yeah. That was like late to the piece. Yeah, that one.
Wow.
So could have missed out. Could have been on Colliding Skies. Who knows? You couldn't kind of see that record. I mean, like obviously One Door's pretty iconic on that record, but you couldn't really see that record without that track. Like, just that's where it belongs. It's kind of where it sits.
Would it be remiss of me to say that Beautiful Abyss is one of your favorite tracks on the album?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to play like that midsection just sings like you can, and when you sort of hit that groove, sort of heavy riff towards the end of the midsection, it's just like, for something to build up it sort of over 3 or 4 minutes by that point, and just kind of hit those sort of heavy strides in the middle and then just cut it clean with a nice little clean bit and then just a big soaring outro. Like, that's a cool song. So love it. Like, it just builds up. It definitely ties, I guess, the sort of front half and the back half of the record together. Really sings. I mean, Invert Evolutions, like that's always been a favorite to play live. That's just big and heavy and,
I reckon the groove in Invert Evolution just looks over at Avalon and says, mate, hold my beer. I got some serious groove for you.
Remember you missed this. Yeah. And like Being Path as well, like just stuff like that. Like those tracks, I mean, the stuff we're writing at that point, I think we were in this like super fertile window of like songwriting. And like if you didn't put a recording slot in that gap, like straight after it, we would have just kept writing songs. You would have got like a double vinyl, double whatever record, probably, who knows. But we needed to put a stamp on that like period of time. So
Lucky there was a recording studio in the way. Otherwise we would have been trying to cut stuff. That would have been terrible.
So what was it like holding this, the press copy of the album, in your hands for the first time?
It was awesome. I mean, I guess CDs in the past are in little see-through plastic folders. It's like, oh, gatefold. This is pretty nice. We step things up from the $1.45 a unit to $2.10 a unit. It's like, yeah, that's the first step. You're getting a really nice, like, physical product. I think nothing beats having it in your hands, like the end product, and it's all there. It's all polished. You can't beat it. You know, get the nice box and everything's all fresh when you take it. But I guess like pride really is a big thing. Every song on there I'm proud to have been a part of and proud to have written, and we love playing the songs. And I mean, in the upcoming show, we've never played the album in its entirety in order as well. We've played, you know, obviously handfuls of songs here and there, like whatever it was. But just being like super stoked with the outcome, and I can listen back to that record being in the band, like as a band person, like you write the records, you've heard the songs 5 billion times. Sometimes you just don't really want to listen to them, and you might only want to play a few of them. Like I can listen to that record start to finish, like on the regular, and still be like happy and go, that was good. Love that record. It feels like having a product like that is just, I mean, you're proud of it. So at the end of the day,
absolutely,
yeah. Colliding Stars and stuff on vinyl and the other records, and I listen to records and I put those records on like regularly, and it's like, oh, this is still awesome. Or like once a year, or I might listen to the vinyl once a year. It's like, oh, this is awesome. This is still great. It's still holding up in today. You could release it today and it would be fine.
Colliding
Stars, that's kind of cool, you know. So
album.
It's good to have, and it's a good progression in terms of like our writing style and everything like that. So it's good to know that they stand up today. And now with our maturity and our skill and our as musicians, playing these songs now 10, 12 years on, basically with better gear, better skills, like we're tighter, we're like, it just sounds better. It's like, wow, this is actually like, these sound cool now as well. So, you know, the Boss, M2 distortion, Axe effects and bloody neural DSPs and stuff. So yeah, we're sounding pretty tight, which is good. It brings justice to the record. It's tight. It sounds good. No matter if you played it back then on semi good gear or now on amazing gear, it just sounds better these days. So yeah.
So the rebirthing of the Human Connection is going to be happening at Badlands Bar on the 25th of Feb, and things have changed a little bit since you first released the album. Obviously you've got a new drummer in Tim Stelter, the one and only Tim Stelter. Can you tell me about how he's taken to it?
Yeah, I mean, this kind of music and the songs are right in his wheelhouse. So he's a drummer that's very fit to play these songs, and he loves it. And obviously he's trying to play it as true to its source as possible. But every drummer's got their flair and their unique sort of parts. And I mean, overall, I mean Tim's fitted into the band perfectly. We recorded the last record with him, so he's
Legacies.
We're all tied in. We're tight. We've got that. I mean, specifically for me, like the bass and drums component, it's tight. We're locked in, and that's always good having that sort of relationship going. Because Simon and Ryan, obviously, with in their guitar work, they just feed off each other basically, which is killer. And there's lots of that sort of dueling solos and stuff on the record, which is always fun. But yeah, obviously that sort of drum and bass relationship is always, that's sort of how I write music and how I play music. So having that person to lock in with is super cool. And we do that really well, I think.
So the transition from Ben to Tim was pretty much seamless.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben had his sort of key sort of things that he did really well, and we used to lock in. Like Ben was amazing on the pedals as well, and pedals and bass marries up perfectly. So
Yeah, it was great. So the combination that Tim brings now is awesome. Like it's there's different elements that are awesome that we might not have got with Ben and obviously Chris before that as well. So yeah, definitely a perfect fit, I think.
Very good, combining the precision of the Dutch with the precision of the German.
Yeah, neighbours.
So has Ben reached out about this show by just querying,
No, it's just it's just doing it.
just doing his Ashen thing?
Just doing his action.
Good on him.
Yeah, different. I think different. Everyone's got their different style, their different loves. So, and that's the sort of the direction he went in, and it was mutual at the time. Sort of the splitting of ways. So it was just a matter of finding that person that fits in next. And yeah, it was no qualms, no beefs. Just a good record. Thanks, Ben.
Sensational.
Yeah.
I much like Tim, when Ben was on stage weaving his craft for you guys, I used to just stare in awe at him.
It's gospel chops. It's tight kicks. It's great. Like especially you. I mean, you're a Soilwork fan and stuff like that. And Ben, I think at that time was a big Soilwork fan, especially during those earlier records as well. It's just you just get that kind of it's just like energy.
So Mike, can you tell us about the show that's coming up at Badlands?
It's the Human Connection Live. So start to finish with a couple of little extras on the end, just to get us past the hour mark. No, we're just going to play start to finish, just in its true form. There's a couple of obviously there's some beefed up sections and things because that's fun. But yeah, it should be awesome. We've got killer lighting sort of organized for it. Everything's sounding awesome in the rehearsal studio here in this room. So pretty keen to get on there and just throw it down. I reckon it's going to be a pretty cool night playing there. So we've got Yomi Ship and Amber Down coming along as well for the ride, which will be pretty cool.
Some fantastic Perth talent.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just looking forward to as I say, going back and playing those songs now after many years for some of them. It's you just play them and go, oh man, this is so fun. It's just fun, high energy, good stuff.
Mike, could you please do me the honour of signing my The Human Connection CD? Thank you, mate.
I would love to.
There it is. Thank you, Mike. Thanks so much for joining me today, Mike.
You're welcome.
All the best.
Pleasure. See you guys.
See you on the 25th. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me on the AndoVocals podcast today. Much appreciated. It is a pleasure, honour and privilege to have you on today, mate.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Can you tell us about your involvement personally in the writing of the Human Connection album?
Yeah, so I think most albums we write always start with pretty much me and Simon coming up with riffs. And it was, very similar to how we go about it now, but at the time I think we did a lot more preparation for that album than we probably do now. We kind of all agreed that it was going to be a big block in the studio recording, so we wanted to be real prepared, and so we wrote a lot of stuff, a lot of fine tuning, going back over songs and stuff, but yeah, pretty much always starts with me and Simon coming up with stuff at home. I remember going around to Simon's place, most weeknights, and just trying to flesh bits out, turn riffs into songs, go back over songs and come up with solo parts and all that stuff. And then we'd take it into the jam room, on the weekend when we'd rehearse and kind of make sure the songs were structurally all there. So yeah, it probably had the most sort of finessing out of any of our albums. I think the Human Connection, it sort of went went back over, we went back over lots of parts and really kind of trying to make it work as best we could.
Yeah, she's a beauty, mate.
Came out all right.
So Ryan, do you have any memories of shows that you were playing in the lead up to the launch of the Human Connection?
I think when we were, so before that we did quite a lot of like support slots in Perth, but we hadn't really done like heaps of touring. We did one European tour, which was pretty much just us getting used to how does a band from Perth travel in Europe and what do you actually have to do to organise shows over there. And it was, a rude awakening, I think. We all were just winging it. We hired our own car, we booked our own accommodation, we, hit up bands on Facebook to sort of say, hey, we're going to be here. Do you want to try and do a gig around that time? And so we got heaps of really cool bands that we ended up being kind of, good friends with afterwards. But all from just sort of doing it ourselves. And that's what you've got to do as a band trying to kind of go anywhere. You can't rely on things to just fall in your lap. So we all kind of just pitched in and made the tour happen. At the time, I think we'd only just done the EP, the first EP.
Ratio 2006, yeah?
A whole different ball game to where we were when we recorded the Human Connection. But it got us into a good headspace for like, okay, what do we actually need as a physical piece of music to kind of get people interested in us? Because we went over there with, obviously having done a demo, and it's pretty much just a demo really at the time, but it sort of became bigger than that. But we realized we didn't really have a product that was going to push us into that next level. And then, we played a bunch of support shows in Perth. We didn't really do much touring up until we released that album. We'd done one tour, again, in Australia off the back of the Ratio EP. But we'd really just started to get our kind of find our feet in terms of playing some support shows like Slayer and all that kind of thing coming to Perth. And luckily...
Fear Factory.
Yeah, Fear Factory, Dark Tranquility, Static X at the time we were playing with. There's a bunch of others, but we kind of became a bit renowned for like getting all the supports in Perth. That short little window when it happens, you sort of...
It's good exposure though, right?
It is great. And that's what made it sort of us to be able to kind of, once we had another album, we could start to play our own shows and get people along to our own gigs, which was good. I think after we released that album, Human Connection, we started to kind of look at touring ourselves and started to get over east quite a lot and doing the runs of kind of weekends over in Sydney and Melbourne and all that stuff, which was really that's what playing in a band's all about, being able to go away for the weekend and come back and do it all again in 6 months' time.
So what do you remember about the launch in Perth in particular, Ryan?
Well, it was at the Rosemount, and I remember it being an absolutely stinking hot day. I think it was end of February or early March. Absolutely stinking hot day. I can remember just sweating my ass off on stage.
As you do at the Rosemount?
Being really nervous. It felt like it was such a big build-up for that show, whereas, nowadays our gigs are kind of a little bit less... I wouldn't say we don't take them as seriously, but we're probably not as hard on ourselves to try and be perfect, which makes live is what it is, live show. But at the time, I think we were all really, really excited and nervous for that show. I remember particularly being really nervous going on stage, but really good show, massive. I think we got a really good turnout.
And it was quite an eclectic lineup as well, because obviously yourselves headlined it. You had Tangled Thoughts Elite.
Yeah, Tangled Thoughts.
You had Brutus.
Yep.
And another band that I can't quite think of at this point in time.
I'll have to go back on the poster, so it's been a bit too long. I remember it being a really good mix of bands. Just the whole night kind of came off really well. Lighting was great. Sound was always great at the Rosemount at the time, so yeah, it was an awesome night.
Yeah, good old Kelvin. Can't go wrong with him.
I think he's still there.
Yeah, good on him. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, they've had the full renos and stuff done there. It's an awesome setup.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh,
I really want to get back there.
Fuck. Yeah. Coming back to the launch here in Perth, I just think of certain people when I think about the Human Connection, because that's what the album's about, right?
Yep.
You know, just Mel Scrafton standing in the front row, just getting into it, just as she did back in the day.
Yeah, she was always sort of two people behind the front of the stage, and just she was a big personality in the room at all the time. Yeah,
and like a Red Ashby as well, just throwing himself around the room.
Yeah.
You know, Chris Beard, who's a longtime friend.
Yeah.
Scotty Douglas, there's people that just come to mind when I think of the Human Connection.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of the metal crew that we were playing gigs with at the time always came to our shows. You know, Jamie Kay and those guys, always loved to see them. I think some of the Voyager guys always used to come to our shows as well. So yeah, it was a good time for Perth metal. Still is, but you know, obviously that time was very different in terms of, you know, we're probably getting a little bit better turnouts at gigs. At the moment, it's quite hard to get the numbers like we used to. COVID's obviously had a big impact on, you know, that at the moment, but you know, I'm pretty hopeful that we'll get a good crowd at this next one.
Sweet. Yeah. Badlands on February 25. Can you tell us a bit more about the show, mate?
Look, we're putting all we can into it. I mean, like, we're going over all the songs with a fine-tooth comb and making them as good as they can be live. Having Tim behind the kit for these songs is awesome. He's such a beast. His timing and just his tightness is awesome. So the songs just sound like they've had new life breathed into them.
Beautiful.
And there's a lot of songs we haven't played in ages. Some I'd say we'd only played once or twice live ever. One of them being probably the launch. But yeah, some of these songs have been years until we'd pick them up again. And it's almost like we've sort of started afresh with some of the songs, which is great. And you know, I think our production at the moment's a lot better live than what it used to be. You know, we've got a lot more things on stage that make a bigger, fuller sound. You know, we've got a lot of automated tracks and things going on in the background. We've got you know, just bigger rigs and better rigs and, you know, tighter guitars and things like that. So I think, you know, sound wise it'll be really good.
Yeah, Mike did mention that, you know, you guys are a lot better at your craft these days. You've got better rigs, but coming back to something you just mentioned then, the sampling side of things. Can you tell me about your involvement in the sampling?
Yeah, I dabbled in... That's probably the first record where I really started to dabble in, like, sort of, I guess, a bit of sound design in the background of our songs. I mean, up until then, we just pretty much, you know, laid down some guitars, a few extra layers, and that was it. And, you know, it was pretty rough and ready. But for this one, because we had so much time in the studio, so we lined up pretty much like 4 or 5 weeks in a row, which is a luxury we'd never have now. We'd never be able to afford the time nor the money, but at the time we thought, we'll just, we'll go start to finish in the studio. We won't have any time off between instruments. So we kind of did drums, guitars, bass, vocals all in a row, and it was a really big learning experience, and it was, you know, it was a bit of a gruel, but it meant that we had a lot of time in the studio to sort of be, you know, while someone was doing something with recording a part, I would be in sort of with the headphones on with a TC unit with a whole bunch of crazy effects, trying to come up with layers, and started to do some synth stuff and all that stuff. So I think the kind of the layer part of it sort of started to come into our sound. It was still a bit of an ordeal trying to reproduce that live, because of the way we set up our stage show, didn't really have the ability to do that as easily. But now with, you know, technology being what it is, and, you know, some of the rigs that we've got now to be able to run in-ears and all that stuff, and send tracks to, you know, front of house very easily, and, you know, do some cool stuff with effects on guitars and, you know, DI stuff. So it's sort of the sound's getting bigger and fuller for the live show, which is awesome, and it just makes it all the more enjoyable.
Can you tell us about the tech that you're using these days?
Yeah, so we've switched pretty much to modelling, but we still do run live guitar amps on stage, so you kind of do get a bit of best of both worlds. So I'm running the QC Neural, so the Quad Cortex, which is awesome. Does a whole bunch of really cool stuff, a whole lot of power, and all the effects you could want in it. So it's great. I've actually been able to capture all the amplifiers that we sort of used back in the day of the recording. So we had our mates Troy and Leon Todd, obviously a big YouTuber on the Fractal community. His amp collection's unbelievable, and we pretty much had access to a lot of those amps when we recorded Human Connection. So I went over to his studio and borrowed his Metha Mark IV, I borrowed his Stereotone, I borrowed a bunch of other amps. I've got a Bogner at home, so I basically was just able to capture all those in the Neural, which is an amazing new technology. Basically gives you a snapshot of your amp that you can use in a multi-effects kind of setup. You can send it into your in-ears, you can send it to the front of house, but it sounds exactly like your traditional amplifier. So having all that at our disposal now is just amazing. But at the time, we had 10 amps lined up in the room, trying to pick which setting was best on which amp, and so it was very analog when we recorded the Human Connection, and we still do that now. I think even with the latest album, Legacies, we got 15 amps, and we just wanted to make the best tone out of it. And there's something about having a real amp, for a recording that just makes that whole process so much more satisfying. A little bit easier on stage to not actually have to worry about trying to dial in the perfect tone on an amp, and I think that's what's great about modeling, guitar modeling at the moment, is it allows you to take that sound anywhere, and it's going to be great wherever venue you play it. And you can rely on the tone and what's coming out of your in-ears and what's getting sent to the fallbacks for the front of house, and what you're hearing coming out on the cabinets on stage it's all going to be great. So that tech has really meant that we've got such a tighter live show now.
So we're in for a treat on Feb 25 then.
I think so. I think anyone that's there, you won't be disappointed. If you're a fan of the album, and if you're a fan of seeing us live, and you remember seeing us live over the last sort of 10 or so years, you'll be, I hope, be pleasantly surprised with the quality. And we've done a lot of work to get our stage show and our sound right up at as good as it can be.
Fantastic. So coming back to Human Connections, I mean, obviously the album is called The Human Connection, but I'm focusing here on the Human Connections that built the album. Can you tell us about Jens Bogner's involvement?
Yeah, so we, at the time when we were making the album, I think we were all really interested in some of the bands like Arch Enemy, Soilwork, Catatonia, and the albums they were making at the time, they just all had this sound. Opeth obviously had the same sound as well. They just had this amazing production that we weren't really hearing a lot out of Australia. We weren't hearing out of Perth, certainly. And we really wanted to explore, what are those producers doing over in Europe that would give our sound a kind of a bit of an edge. We just contacted Jens online. We told him we were a big fan of his work, and we gave him a bit of a listen to some of the, at the time we'd done a few tracks in the studio. We hadn't finished them off, but we kind of knew we sort of wanted to send it away and get, mixed and mastered. So we sent him some of the tracks, and he really gave us some good feedback. I mean, for someone that's mixed, one of the greatest Opeth albums of all time, in my opinion, to come back and say, he was amazed and kind of blown away with the material. And
which Opeth album was that?
So he did Ghost Reveries and I believe Watershed. Right. But Ghost Reveries for me is, an amazing album. I think to have, the good feedback at the time, we kind of knew we were onto a bit of a good thing with that album. And then when I remember, I think I was over at Simon's house listening to the first, when we got the mix back, or the first mix back, and I just could not believe it was the same. It was the same, material we actually sent away, because it just sounded like everything had come to life. The way he'd mixed it, just everything sat perfectly. There was a whole lot of, just bigness to the sound, which we hadn't really had in any of our songs or kind of recordings up till then. The album before that, Avalon and Ratio, they were done, fairly on the cheap, pretty home job kind of recording.
But to an international standard, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great for what it is, but we certainly didn't put the money and the resources into it like we did with Human Connection. Probably still stands as the most expensive album we've made to date. 5 weeks of studio time is expensive, and then obviously to follow that up with sending it away to a world-class producer to mix it and master it. It's not cheap, and at the time, I think it was even more expensive just because of studios. They were in hot demand, and it was. That's how you recorded an album. You didn't have the DI, you didn't have the great amps that just you could take anywhere with you and fit in your pocket and kind of thing. Like you had to set things up. You had to spend a lot of time getting sounds, and you had to have a great room, good drum room, which is obviously still important these days. But it felt like it's a bit of a different process now, and it's a quicker process, and it's a cheaper process, which it should be. So more bands can do it. But I think at the time, it cost us a lot of money, and so we wanted to kind of see it through to the end. So Jens did a great job, and even when we recorded Africa, we sent that cover. We sent it away to Jens as well to mix and master, and he gave us really great feedback, and he was sort of the mastermind on making that sound amazing as well. So I know he's still doing really great work. But maybe the next album we'll send it back to Jens and see if he can work his magic again.
Fantastic. So, the legacy of the Human Connection, what do you feel has stood the test of time?
Probably just the dynamics in the songs. I think at the time, we weren't really trying to kind of nail a specific genre. We weren't really hung up on, we have to make things as heavy as they have to be, or we're a heavy band, so we have to write all brutal songs. Like, none of us really had a kind of a stereotypical sound that we wanted to go on this album. So I think that kind of shone through, and I think you get a lot of light and shade on the album, and just the kind of where the whole song sort of crescendos, I guess, in a lot of those tracks. It just feels bigger than a lot of our other songs. Like, there's just moments in that album which you kind of just, your hairs stand up and say, that's a big part. Like, that's a massive big part.
Beautiful Abyss.
Yeah, and that's a typical, for me, that's the one part that stands out. The midsection of that just reaches that point where, I think by contrast, there's a lot of lighter stuff on that album, and when you hit those big bits, it just really hits you. So I think that for me is what sort of has stood the test of time, and playing those songs live now with kind of the tightness of the band that we've been able to sort of develop with Tim in the band coming in, and just, everything's a lot tighter. When we play those big bits now, they just sound even bigger. We're really excited to kind of play those songs again. Yeah.
Any personal favourite songs on the album? The Human Connection.
I think Beautiful Abyss is probably my personal favourite. But if I had to pick sort of another, I actually really like the track Silence. I think it's got a lot of really cool guitar riff work in it that is very hard to pull off live, even though it doesn't really sort of sound like a very complicated song. But there's just some of the chord shapes in it, and some of the timing around where things fall is quite tricky live. But when it all comes together, it's a really great song, and it's a really kind of high energy song. So that's probably my other favourite.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of personal meaning in that song for Dave in particular.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that's what's great about this album, is it runs so deep for all the members, even those that weren't a part of the writing, like Tim. He can still sort of relate to the kind of the lyrics and the emotion in the song, and kind of then take it on in his own way, which is great.
In his own performance of the songs, right? Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that's what good songs do. They kind of, reach out to people in their own way, and the songs on this album have seemed to have kind of stood the test of time to be able to do that with multiple people for multiple different reasons. We're pretty aware that these songs kind of mean a lot to people. So when we play them live, we want to do the best job we can. Yeah.
Awesome. So Ryan, you are primarily responsible for the aesthetics of Chaos Divine. You are a super ridiculously talented graphic designer. in the vein of the Ash Dude Courts of this world.
Oh, that's not going nuts.
There is just one little piece of work that I wanted to identify on this. So you've got your inlay here from the CD.
Yep.
And, you look at it that way, but then you turn it that way and it's actually two people holding hands as a symbol of the human connection.
Yep.
I think you've done an absolutely incredible job of the design on this album, mate.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the process?
It was a long process because of obviously the deep meaning for Dave in a lot of the songs. Obviously, when songs carry such a personal meaning, it's not an easy process then someone else trying to put a visual spin on those songs and represent the album visually. So yeah, we did a lot of different concepts. For me, it was always, the two faces was always something that I kind of had in the back of my mind, and I kind of wanted to explore that. There was a lot of different styles and things we were playing with, but yeah, one night I just kind of sort of saw the silhouette shape that it makes sort of in the middle with the two faces, and I thought, oh, that's cool, like we could play with that sort of kind of negative space, and just the energy around some of the colours and the kind of the style of all the energy coming through the faces was just sort of it kind of for me represented so much of what had gone into the album, the energy and the efforts also put into the album, and it's just got a really iconic kind of look to it. I think it stood the test of time as well.
For sure.
A lot of people like seeing that on a shirt, and we always get requests for more human connection shirts and things like that. So I really enjoy doing the art for the band. I think it's keeps me pretty busy because there's always there's a lot we do. We like to pride ourselves on our artwork as well. I think it makes us kind of somewhat who we are. We've always had pretty good visuals for our artwork and stuff. So I've sort of really enjoyed being that role in the band.
And what could you tell us about the updated artwork that you're using for this show?
Yeah, so we've done a bit of a retake on the cover for some new line of merch, which looks killer, by the way. We did all vector art, so it's a kind of a new spin on the whole cover. Hopefully people really like the shirts and get down to the gig and buy yourself some new threads.
So Ryan, can you please do me the honour of signing my Human Connection CD? Thanks, mate. Good one. Thank you so much, Ryan.
No problems, man.
Right, man. Thanks for joining me today, and really looking forward to seeing you guys bring this album back to life on the 25th of Feb at Badlands.
Yeah, we got some good things in store as well, so...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so be there. Be there.
Cheers, dude.
Perfect.
Hey Simon, thank you so much for joining us on the AndoVocals podcast today, mate.
Pleasure.
It's a pleasure, honour and a privilege for me, mate. So thank you so much for joining us.
Cheers.
So Simon, can you please tell me about your involvement in the songwriting process of The Human Connection?
Our writing process has kind of gone through a few different kind of stages over the years. We've tried quite a few different things where, we've tried doing this sort of organic, like in the band room thing of just like someone comes up with a riff or an idea and then it kind of goes from there. We've also done a lot of like home writing at the computer where someone will write, almost a song almost, or half a song or something like that. And then it kind of just, goes through a few extra sets of ears and hands and then sort of gets tweaked into what it ends up becoming. It's been a while since The Human Connection, so I can't actually remember exactly what the sort of main method of writing was for that record. I think there was a fair bit of coming up with just like core ideas for like one guy, whether it be me or Ryan or Ben or anyone really. Like Dave and Mike both sort of came to the table with their sort of original ideas, but I guess for the most part it was either Ryan or myself just coming up with a basic sort of idea, and then some songs I think were kind of fleshed out and then finished off like as a bit of a, everybody get together around the computer at someone's house and kind of do it that way, and then I think some of the other songs were finished off and completed in the jam room. So it was a bit of a mixed bag.
Sure.
With that record, yeah.
So primarily you would say that the songwriting process does start with guitars?
Yeah, usually. I don't know if that's pretty standard or if that's more of an us thing. I guess it's an us thing just because we're a fairly guitar-y band, and melody is fairly important to our songs, because it's that's what gives Dave the opportunity to write the big vocal sections that he does. Beautiful. So that has always kind of been at the forefront of what we do. So yeah, guitars kind of always generally kind of formed the basis of the songs.
So Simon, what are your memories of the shows that you were playing sort of in the lead up to the launch of the Human Connection album?
That was a pretty good time for shows for us. We were getting a lot of like international support gigs, which was pretty exciting. I think that was around the time we were getting like Dark Tranquility and Trivium. They were some pretty ripper shows. Like, we hadn't been going that long, so to sort of suddenly start getting shows like that, it was really exciting. It was really wicked.
A real feather in the cap for Chaos Divine back in the day.
Totally.
What are your memories of the recording process from an engineer's perspective?
It was my first like big job as an engineer. I was pretty fresh out of. In fact, I was still at Whopper actually, so I was still studying audio when we did this album. I was in my final year, so it was kind of a bit of a opportunity to kind of put all of that, that 3 years of work just to good use. I wasn't going to get a band to actually pay me to to do such a big job, so obviously I had to start out with a band that had no choice but to get me to do it. But nevertheless, it was a really fun process. We booked out Underground Studios, so we booked that out for a month. So I was there for a month. The other guys came in and out when they needed to. But I was there every day, 9 till 9, something like that. Long hours, but no.
Long days, mate.
It was
days.
Really, really fun and exciting. Just being in like total control of such a big project like that, and having the time, because like a month is a long time in the studio. Most bands don't get the opportunity to record for that long. It's like get the drums done in a couple of days, and then guitar in one day, and bass in a day, and then vocals in a few days, and in and out as fast as possible to save them dollars. But we had a real luxury of being able to spend 4 weeks on this project, so we could kind of really flesh out the songs a bit more, really kind of think about layering and texturing, which has sort of become a bit of an identifying factor with our sound, is that we have a lot of layers going on to create textures and all of that sort of stuff.
The divine in the chaos.
Yeah, sure. I'll take credit for that. It was, I think it made a big difference it sort of changed the direction of where we ended up going, that whole experience. The first 2 records were what they were, but I think Human Connection just kind of set us on a whole other trajectory and kind of set a benchmark where it was like, well, we've done that, so we can't stinge out on future projects. We have to make sure that everything is at least as good as that from now on. So that set us a challenge for the next 10 years.
I think it's pretty amazing, just seeing with my own eyes and hearing with my own ears the maturation of the Chaos Divine sound. Ratio and Avalon are quite mosh pit friendly. There's some seriously aggressive songs. Brand New Eyes immediately comes to mind. That's a really aggressive song. It really pumps. Whereas you go into the Human Connection, and it's got more of that progressive type of sound to it, and it's a real true maturation of the sound. And as you said, a benchmark for future work.
Yeah, you're right. It sort of. We kind of tried to find a different kind of heavy from then on, if you know what I mean. Before that, to us, heavy was, just big, dirty, riffs, which are wicked, and I love bands that do that. But after Avalon, we just sort of found a different way to kind of be big and heavy. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's like the heaviness kind of just came from just the weight of the sound. There's just more going on. I guess it's more of a kind of a density thing more than a heavy riffs kind of thing. And there's still some sort of heavy riffs as well to help bolster that and keep things still pretty sort of metal heavy. But it certainly kind of gave us a new kind of idea of heavy.
You handed over your recorded tracks to Jens Bogren. The feedback you received from him was very positive.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. It was very flattering to get the approval of a guy who's worked on, just some of the best stuff. His positive feedback was more from a musical perspective than an engineering production perspective. But I mean, I certainly didn't get any complaints. So I couldn't have done too much wrong. I hope. But it was cool to sort of get that that positive feedback from a guy that is so well respected.
Are there any standout moments for you in the recording, mixing, and mastering process?
The first listen.
Yep.
For me, that's always the most exciting part of the process.
So not so much holding the press copy of the disc, it's more getting those first mixes back.
Yeah, for me it is, you just don't really know where the mixing engineer is going to take it. You spend so much time recording, just making sure everything is tidy and clean. And
finessing.
Yeah, and just making sure everything's right. And then there's so much happens in the mixing process that I think most people wouldn't believe, a pre-mixed song versus a mixed song. It's such a massive difference. It's totally vibe. You just, when it's raw and it's unmixed, you can hear what's going on, but you don't get that like immersion into the final product. So when you get those mixes for the first time, and especially when you're sending it to an international guy in Sweden, not entirely sure what's going to come back, and then you chuck it on the CD and chuck it in the CD player for the first time, and you hit play, and it's like, whoa, that is not what I was expecting, and I love it.
Just blows you away. It's like, how did I come up with this?
Yeah, I still remember that feeling, and I remember, like, because I was the point of contact with Jens, I got the mixes first, and so I got to sort of listen to them and then like give everyone in the chat a message like, holy shit guys, check this out. They sound unreal. So
I bring good
pretty fun.
news.
Yeah, exactly. It's always nice to be the bringer of good news to people, so that was cool.
Put a smile on faces.
Totally.
Very nice, very nice. So what can you tell us about your rig that you used in the Human Connection?
Guitar rig?
Absolutely.
That is a good question. That's right. We used a Bad Cat amp. So we ran 2 different guitar tones, 4 layers. So Bad Cat left and right, and then we used an Angle Fireball or something left and right as well. If you sort of have 4 layers of guitars rather than 2, it kind of makes everything a bit bigger. So so we used those 2 different amps. I can't remember what guitars we used, because whenever we go into the studio, and especially at that point when we were recording Human Connection, spending quite a bit of money on studio time, we thought, well, the best prep is to just get our hands on as much gear as possible. So like the foyer was just loaded with guitars and amps that we'd borrowed from friends. I think we had there was probably $100,000 worth of borrowed gear in the studio, just in guitars and amps and things. So many PRSs and Les Pauls and Ibanez, just everything that, every sort of style of guitar and amp that you could think of.
Full-blown guitar porn.
It was total guitar porn. It was wicked. It was really, really fun. And that was just what we ended up landing on, those 2 amps. The Bad Cat Hot Cat 30, which is a boutique hand white, I think it's British, little 30 watt. I think it's a 2-channel amp. But yeah, it's so boutique, right, that there's not a channel switch. So if you want to go from like clean to lead to a like rhythm tone, you have to unplug the cable and then plug it into the other input. So that might make it a bit challenging as a live amp. You might need a tech to quickly kind of when you have a section change.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, but the tone out of that thing was just nuts. It was just so heavy but smooth and clean. Like, it just had everything. So that was kind of the main weapon on that record, was that Bad Cat.
And compare it to your rig these days. What are you playing through these days?
Well, I'm playing I've gone digital. I've gone to the dark side.
Good man, good man.
Which, we're running an in-ear setup now. And it just makes a lot of sense to go digital. It makes that whole process so much easier. But also, I love it. Like, the technology's so good with digital amp modeling these days that you can get tones out of them which you just can't really get from a regular tube amp. That said, there's tones that you get from a tube amp that you can't really model. There's certain aspects of it that aren't quite the same. But the versatility, the ability to run all these different effects. Like, at one point, I was trying to be like the floor pedal, like a effects pedal lord, and I had this gigantic floorboard that was just enormous. It was too big to fit on like basically any stage. It was just so huge, and I was planning on loading it up with just tons and tons of pedals just so that I could just do everything. And I sort of got about a quarter of the way through that project, and I just sort of gave up.
So that's an Axe FX you're running?
Yep, Fractal Axe 8. Actually bought it off Ryan. So Ryan switched over to his Neural DSP setup, and I said, I'll have you Fractal.
Sweet.
So he sold me that. So yeah, it's been great. It's been really, really good. It's kind of like changed the game for me, actually. Like, it's made like rehearsals, like a lot more fun, just sort of being able to pump everything into your in-ears directly and really be able to hear what you're doing. It's totally different, and it's really cool. I really like it.
Awesome. So you toured the Human Connection over East. What are your fondest memories of that tour?
The lack of memories probably is a bit of an indication of how that all went.
That sounds like a quality tour.
Honestly, I couldn't separate the tours out. Like, we did quite a few around that time, and we've done, loads since. But we had this sort of run around, it would have been 2012. Yeah, 2011, 2012, where we're getting a few of these fairly good size, like, festival shows in Melbourne, which were at the ESPY. That was really cool. We played a few really, really wicked fun shows at the ESPY in the Gershwin room, which is where I think they used to film Spicks and Specks.
Ah, right.
In that room.
Yeah, okay.
Really cool. Just the buildings had this cool vibe. Not your average venue. It was really, really cool. It's in Kilda. It's a cool place.
Absolutely.
Yes, the whole thing just always had a vibe. Yeah, they were really, really cool. Like, the crowds were just always so good. Like, always packed. And everyone was super cool, and the shows were just great. So those are my most sort of prominent memories from touring around that time. Was mostly playing at the ESPY.
So the rebirthing process of the Human Connection, bringing Tim into the fold and blooding him, teaching him the songs. Can you talk us through that process? How's that been?
Super easy. He didn't require teaching. He just went and listened to them and just figured it out himself. I mean, the guy's a gun, so it couldn't have been easier. In that we didn't have to do anything. It was that easy that we didn't even have to do anything.
You literally just walked into the jam room.
Basically, I mean, it took him a few jams. Like, there's a couple of songs. I guess it was because we have played probably 3/4 of the songs. Just, one song here, 2 songs there for gigs over the last, 5 years, 6 years since Tim joined. So, like, most of the songs from previous shows and tours and things he already knew. So from that point on, it was pretty easy. But there are a couple of songs that he hadn't played. But once we'd figured out that this whole thing was what we were doing, he pretty much just rocked up to the jam room, just having learned it all at home, and off he went. So now it's a piece of cake as far as I'm concerned.
That's the sort of musician you want in your band.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I must say, his time in Pyramesh, it was just amazing to have a man of such talent bringing his German precision into the room and just...
Yeah, and work ethic as well.
Discipline as well, work ethic, absolutely. Yeah, that's what we love about Tim.
Yeah, he's the only one in this band that has, except for Ryan. those two understand the words work ethic. The rest of us, we just do what we're told. Hopefully try not to embarrass everybody else too badly.
So has Ben Azarol reached out to you at all since finding out about you guys performing this album live?
No, but we haven't reached out to him either. So yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice if we could hook up and get him along. So we'll see what happens. Hope so. I mean, it's not like there's any bad blood or anything. It was all very amicable when he decided to go his own way, and that's just one of those things. He went one way and we went the other, so but yeah, it'd be nice to see him there. That'd be cool. We'll have to shout him some beers. I think he earned them.
Oh, for sure. And then some. Yeah, I remember.
I mean, that record wouldn't be what it is without Ben having played on it. I mean, the guy's a massive talent. So yeah,
I just used to watch him. I mean, all of you guys are phenomenal musicians, but I just used to stare in awe at Ben.
He had this flair. Yeah, the way he played. It's not the kind of thing that you see very often from a lot of drummers. That's also what I like about Tim. Tim has another kind of flair.
Absolutely.
It's rare to find a drummer that plays in a really strong, precise and really great sort of way, while also having this interesting way, just visually, about playing it. Yeah,
It's not just playing drums; it's a full performance.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And I'm the same. Like, drums are actually one of my favorite things to look at when I'm watching a live band. If there's a drummer that is interesting to look at, my eyes are locked on that drummer most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, as a vocalist, I think the vocals are the last thing I listen to when it comes to music.
Vocals are hacks.
Yeah, we're just boring geezers with no personalities who carry on with bullshit.
And get all the glory. Right.
So tell us about the show that's coming up, the live performance of The Human Connection in its entirety on the 25th of February, mate.
Well, we're playing The Human Connection from start to finish live on the 25th of February at Badlands.
Who would have thought? Badlands. Sweet. Awesome.
See you later.
Look, are you looking forward to the support acts?
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't actually seen them. I've listened to their stuff and I really like both Yomi Ship and Amber Down. So, yeah, it'd be cool. It's always really great fun to play with bands that you haven't played with before. It's nice to sort of develop those kind of relationships with other bands that we have in the past, and we've played loads and loads of shows together, and you sort of develop a bit of that kind of brotherhood, which is always really fun. But it's also cool to just like see something different and offer something different for punters as well, just to freshen things up a bit. And those guys they're all doing pretty cool things, so really looking forward to it.
Simon, can you please do me the favour of signing my copy of The Human Connection?
Pleasure.
Thank you. Simon, thank you so much for joining us today, and really looking forward to the show on the 25th of Feb.
Mate, thanks for having us, and I'll look forward to seeing you there.
All the best.
Cheers.
Yeah. Legend.
Very good. Oh, it's not a trap. Right. You need to make an action.
Hey, snooze, you lose.
Let me do that. That's pretty good.
Whoa, that was so extreme. I wish I was as good as you.
Now let's listen to it together. It'll sound better. Just find there at the end.
Harmony in this.
Oh, it's still opening. Let's do it again.
Oh, I was going to say, is it harder to record when someone's got a camera in your face?
No. It's actually easier. It sort of motivates me to play better.
Oh, alright, well.
So I don't suck on camera.
Oh, that was bad.
Just leave the volume up a little bit so the camera can get the audio.
Got it. Oh, you're actually recording now.
Just give it a little more.
Top end, just a little bit. Already about maximum. Already about max top end. Maximum. Tim, thank you so much for joining us on the AndoVocals podcast today, mate.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure.
And thank you so much for connecting this interview. It's been an amazing night,
That's what it's all about.
full of insights from quality gentlemen.
Fantastic. Yep, no worries.
Can you tell us what The Human Connection means to you as an album, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Human Connection is one of those albums that kind of comes around once in a while. The first, to me, that really would kind of prick up your ears would maybe be like Themata. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Carnival, something that you hear from your hometown that kind of just makes you think, you know, damn, is this what's possible now? You know what I mean? It's just like
Setting that benchmark.
a raising of the bar, you know what I mean? What is possible, you know, for a band. And yeah, it was an elevation, you know, everything about it, you know. I think, you know, I'd known the guys for a couple of years before that, you know, around the Ratio kind of time. Been to, you know, Ratio launch and a bunch of shows around that kind of time. While they were doing Human Connection as well, Simon was actually working with one of my previous band's, Weapons, on getting our EP recorded as well. So, you know, caught a little bit of this and that around that time about the Human Connection, and really just kind of when it dropped as well, I was pretty taken aback with the kind of depth, you know, just the depth of it. There's layers upon layers,
So many
layers upon
so many
layers, yeah. And you know, especially from Dave, I mean, you know, I don't want to go too much into it, I guess, but most people probably wouldn't know that Dave's dad actually was a teacher at my high school, right? You know,
South Frio, yeah?
yeah, South Frio, yeah, back in the day.
A lot can be said for bloody good school teachers and the profound impact that they have on the students that they're teaching, right?
Absolutely. Going back even further, so he taught at the same school in Port Hedland as my nana was the librarian, I believe.
Yeah, wow.
So
More human connections.
yeah, and so it's small Perth, small WA, small world. That's just the way it goes. If you know what I mean. There's just connection everywhere, across all facets. So yeah, I'm at home in this band for sure.
Fantastic, dude.
Yeah, with Mr. Anderton's passing, you know, a lot of the messaging and I guess the subtext of it, you know, there was a lot of you know, either overt or subtext, you know, that this album was kind of, you know, a message from Dave to to his old man, you know, celebration of his life, you know, mourning the loss. And so, yeah, having known the man, it kind of just, you know, hit on another level as well. I had a really good mate around that time, Ash, as well, who was also in the same year. And it was kind of like it's just a thing, you know. It was just like you hear this album, but you have like a deeper personal connection to what's going on, you know, sharing it on a deeper level. So yeah, I haven't been too you know, forthright about that level of the connection over the years. But you know, eventually when it came that, you know, Simon asked me to join the band, that was just always in the back of my mind, you know what I mean, that I had that there was another reason for me to be in this band, you know, beyond just being a drummer, you know, that yeah, there's just a deeper level to it.
That's, I guess, another reason for why you do what you do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think feeling, yeah, just like you're a part of something, essentially. You know, a part of something that you know, people around the world, anyone who listens to it can feel the meaning, and you know, just kind of get into it. And it, yeah, I don't know, just, you know, you feel it deeply, you get into it, it fuels how you perform, it fuels what you want to express, you know, it informs what you want for the future as well, you know, and yeah, that's just really to make meaningful music that people all around the world can connect with.
Fantastic. What are your memories of the Perth scene when the Human Connection was launched?
Yeah, awesome. So around that time, like I said before, my band at the time, Weapons, was kind of trying to do our thing. We were trying to break our way in. I don't feel like we really did it justice in terms of breaking through it, but around that time we were doing anything that we could to get on shows with bands like Chaos. In fact, one of my fondest memories around that time is we were asked to open a show. I believe we opened, it was us, I Said the Sparrow, who they were called at the time, and Chaos Divine headlining.
It's a pretty sick bill.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of a 3-band bill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get a little bit more time, you get a little bit more relaxed changeovers and that kind of thing. And I remember we were definitely the young upstarts on that show. And, you know, being a band that was heavily influenced by, you know, Dillinger Escape Plan and you know, the more chaotic kind of thing, trying to blend that with the, you know, Devin Townsend kind of vibe. We probably stuck out like a bit of a sore thumb, you know, but I remember just having an absolute freaking blast, you know, at that one. And you know, at that time as well, the Chaos guys were all super welcoming to us as a band, you know, super respectful, super happy to have us on the gig, and yeah, it was just wicked memories all around that time.
That gig that you're talking about, I was actually there, and I remember it, and it was a fantastic night. So just lapped up every moment of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, would love to go back in time and relive it.
Oh man, if only.
What are some of the standout songs on the Human Connection for you, mate?
That's a deep question. There's almost everyone has its place, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. It's one of those albums, like I said before, I don't think it left my car CD player for like a good 6-7 months around that time when it came out. I have a tendency to thrash the shit out of, you know, new music that I'm listening to. So yeah, probably wore out the grooves on that one. The first song I heard off it was One Door on Triple J. The one that kind of grabbed me the most is Beautiful Abyss, to be honest. There's something about it, the flow. Again, like I'll always reference the way that Ben recorded that album. He was an absolute master, you know, in the composition, in the feel, the way that it came across, all the tasty little shit that he was dropping in there in terms of fills, you know, ideas. It was just spicy, you know, while locking it down at the same time. So yeah, that grabbed me straight off the bat, and I enjoy it, like the proggy aspects of it as well. You know, it's got the flow, it's got some heavier stuff in there, you know, a couple of double kick runs and that kind of thing. Wicked interlude, you know, and it kind of just brings it all home. And yeah, live we kind of get to have a bit of a play with that ending as well. I'm a different drummer to Ben, so I kind of bring my own thing to it, and the guys seem to have embraced what I do with it too. So we just get to have a bit of fun with it. Definitely towards the end, try some different feels. Just do some shit and see how it comes out. So
Awesome, Tim. So I know people find it hard to talk about themselves, but can you tell us about the stamp that you're putting on these Chaos Divine songs?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, I came from a bit more of a heavier background. The previous bands that I was in definitely were more abrasive, from that heavier sphere. That's not to say that I don't enjoy and especially now, man, I've listened to just about everything under the sun, But I guess what I bring to Chaos is that tendency just to lean a little heavier into things, just to smack a little bit harder, just go for those big hits, hang a little bit, and, just kind of, just, embrace the beginning. That's just my thing. Like, I've always just tried to make things as big as possible. Try not to compromise on putting myself forward, in terms of, just slap the shit out of it, and that's the sound, That's the drummers that I grew up loving, the Igor Caballeras, the Raymond Herreras, Joey Jordisons, or the Thomas Huckers, all of these drummers that they've just got their own thing, and the thing that drew me in, especially to metal, is just that, it's relentless. You know what I mean? There's nothing that I love more than someone hurting themselves to make that snare drum sound good. You know what I mean?
Or even guitarists.
Yep. Whatever it is, any element. Like if you can bring your own physical pain to your instrument, that touches me. So that's what I try and bring to Chaos, is like, heard for it, work for it, make it sound big, make it sound good. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, same can be said for vocalists.
100%. Yeah.
What they bring to the vocal booth, what they bring to the physical performance.
Yeah. You can't fake it. Like, if you fake it, people say, hey, that guy's faking it. It's just the way that it is. People spot a fake from a mile away.
100%.
Yeah.
So I've had the luxury of seeing Chaos Divine twice live since you've joined the band.
Okay.
Once with the launch of Legacies, which was
awesome,
absolutely incredible,
killer,
and then again at a more intimate setting. Indie.
Yeah, that was rad.
Yeah, it had a different feel to it, but
that was a really off the wall show. That was the first time I'd ever played there, to be honest, and just completely off the wall.
So for you, Tim, what is the legacy of the Human Connection?
It's kind of a launching pad. It was like I said before, it was the elevation. It was an elevation point, something where, what my perception is of the band at the time. It was that point where they kind of just rolled their sleeves up, stamped their mark on Perth, on Australia, and, set themselves up to make a mark on the world. You know what I mean? It was just an affirmation of all the things that they'd been working towards for those years before. It's like that concept of like self-realization, you know what I mean? You kind of know the pieces of the puzzle are there, you know what you're working with, and then on that album it just seemed to snap together and, give them, this vision of, this is what the future of the band could be, So I guess the legacy of that album for me is carrying that forward to whatever we do in the future. I've kind of had that with me when we were doing Legacies. It'll be a part of the fabric of whatever we do going forward. It's that element of celebrating the past, bringing that influence in. Because honestly, when I first listened to that, there's things that I brought from that album in terms of the way that Ben was playing drums. As drummers, we steal from each other left, right, center. You know what I mean? That's just what you do. It's everyone.
You just model success.
Well, it's just something that grabs you, you know what I mean? So you think, man, I cop a vibe off that. What can I do with it, you know? And so in the bands that I was in at the time, even, you know, in stuff that was as heavy as Iconoclast, there was still definitely references from Human Connection and stuff in there, even if it was just like, you know, 3 bars in a song that just had something in there, you know, it kind of just seeps its way through, you know. So yeah, even coming now to whatever we're doing at the moment, that it's like a part of your blood after that point, you know. If it makes that much of an impact on you, like, yeah, you wear it, you know, you wear it as a part of how, you know, how you perceive music to be going forward, you know. So yeah, that's definitely the legacy, you know. It's a part of this band, it's a part of me, and every band I've been in since I heard it. So
When I watch a live band, typically my attention goes straight to a drummer. That's always been the case with Chaos Divine. I used to love watching Ben drum.
yeah,
And much like yourself, you know, ever since I've seen Chaos Divine with you in the band, are you looking forward to performing the album in its entirety on Feb 25?
yeah, absolutely. Been working on this for quite a few months now, you know. You got to pay special attention to doing something that wasn't me that recorded it, you know. My aim essentially is to pay homage, you know, with the deepest of respect to what Ben did and what the band's original vision of it was. So anybody coming along to listen will hear those songs as they were meant to be heard, but you know, your own blood seeps into to whatever it is that you do. So there's definitely going to be some moments that you know, that's Tim through and through, you know. And the guys weren't afraid to say, yeah, do it, you know.
Be yourself.
Be yourself, yeah. Yeah, they didn't want to, you know, cram me into a shoebox and say I had to play exactly a certain way. That was my own will to, you know, to make sure that it's done properly, you know. But yeah, there's nothing better than, you know, if you feel something, you know, at a certain point. I very much am a fan and a believer in that music is a conversation, right? It's a living thing. It's not just a static recorded, you know, if you want that, listen to the CD, you know what I mean? But if you want to see it done live, you're listening to a real-time conversation between the 5 of us playing it, you know. And so, yeah, something will happen, I'll cop a vibe off in it, and it'll make me hit that little bit harder. You know, me hitting a little bit harder will mean Simon picks up on it and, you know, has something that gets added, you know. And it's the same with all of us, you know, whatever it is. You know, there's that feedback loop that every musician, I think, chases, you know. Everyone's there for that feedback. When the 5 of us and the crowd are on the same page, then the whole thing just amplifies and amplifies and amplifies. And that's the shit that sustains you, you know. That's when things aren't going so well, you know, in your life or in work or whatever, you know. That's the things that keep you ticking over, you know. It's the get out of jail free card, you know. It's that one thing that yeah, you know, if it's been a while since you've played a show, feel like you're a bit in a funk or whatever, and then you play that show and you're like, fuck, this is obviously a part of what I'm meant to do to make my life whole. So
It's your calling.
yeah, if you could put it like that, yeah, it's a part of myself, my essence, you know. And I could, you know, pretty much say that for the rest of the guys in the band too, you know, when we're here because we've got something to do, you know.
Tell us about the most crazy moment you've ever had on stage, or on tour for that matter.
So craziest moment with Chaos would be the first tour that we went on, which was Frogfest. So I think that was January 2019. My first outing with the band, first time I've been on the road with these guys. We played in Sydney and in Melbourne. I think we played Croxton Band Room, sick venue. It was wicked. I caught up with my mate Brad, who I hadn't seen for a while. He was living over in Melbourne at the time.
Brad Smith.
Yeah.
Get out of town.
Drinking Pirate Life, you know, Mosaic IPAs all day. Realised I had to play a show, so went back to, you know, to Croxton Band Room. got on stage, smashed the gig. I think second to last song, the crowd pretty much just started chanting my name, like out of nowhere. Like I was like flipped out. Like,
Wow, man.
what the hell? Like, I guess Dave introduced me, I guess. Said, hey, this is Tim, he's the new drummer, But yeah, literally having your name chanted back to you by, I think it was like 800 or 900 people in the room at that point, was pretty spun out. The follow-up to that was, I think the next night in Sydney, the same thing happened.
Wow.
Like maybe second to last song again, people just chanting my name. It's like, what the hell, Out of nowhere. Such an affirming thing, like a welcome from the Chaos crowd,
Yeah.
I got a few people who were like, that's not Ben. But for every one person that was like that, it just took me back to hearing like a room of people like literally chant my name just for playing drums for this band. So, the ego definitely bumped up a few notches on that day. I had to get brought back down to earth when I came back home, that's for sure.
Having your name chanted is testament to your hard work. It's a testament to your character. I've been in a band with you, and I think you are getting the plaudits that you deserve being in Chaos Divine.
I appreciate that, man. I'll definitely take it with a grain of salt, It could have been one or two people in there who someone set up to, have a bit of a laugh. Hey, I'll take it, man. I'll take it any day of the week, It was a really good feeling. It's a really good feeling.
So Tim, looking forward to the show on the 25th of Feb. What can you tell us about that, mate?
Essentially, we have been working pretty hard to get the set where it needs to be. We're 100% there at this stage. It's feeling good. It's feeling really good. Full production, everything that we need to make this Chaos Divine show the best of its kind. A couple of little sneaky things maybe hidden in there that I don't want to give away the bag just yet, but certainly worth a visit if anyone's on the fence at the moment. Come down, have a beer with us, have a chat, let us know what Human Connection means to you, and just enjoy the show.
So Tim, will you do me the honour of signing my copy of the Human Connection? Thanks, mate. Tim, thank you so much for signing my copy. What the Human Connection means to me is these five gentlemen right here who have put their mark on the Perth metal scene, the Australian metal scene, and I am forever grateful for what these men have done to my musical tastes.
Small, yellow, different.
Bit of Wadesville.
Yeah.
Love that.
Who else did we play with? White Rider Strange Mountain. Oh, Rider. I did.
That's Trivium.
Trivium.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So we played. Oh,
Yeah, I hear it now. You say that.
yeah. Have you not seen that video?
I haven't seen.
That's what made them famous, mate.
Right, because I've seen some pretty funny takes of Machine Head and Pantera.
The Boat Rudder Strange Mountain is the first of
I
those.
hear that so clearly now.
There's a video of the guy that did it, like going up to them in a signing thing, and you can see they're happy about it, but not so happy about it at the same time.
Right.
So that show, if you want to know something funny, well, not funny, it was kind of shit, but at that show, Trivium show, that we got accused of stealing some of Trivium's rider.
Here we go.
Which we're not stupid enough to do. You don't bite the hand that's feeding you, kind
Absolutely not.
of thing. So we didn't get many. Like, we were on a good run. Like, obviously Fear Factory, Dark Tranquility, Slayer. Like we were doing all these
big names right there.
Big names, and Big Day Out and what have you. And then we played this show, and somebody said that we'd stolen someone's rider, like their rider, which we're not idiots. And like when they'd accused us, I'm pretty sure like we were we haven't done it, but we'll pay for it. We'll pay for it. But we didn't get it.
Keep the peace.
But I'm pretty sure we didn't get a big international show for a couple of years after.
Oh, you're kidding. Matt, if you're watching this, Chaos Divine did not steal your rider.
No. And funnily enough, I was on a cruise with a dude who was a fitness dude.
Yeah.
Personal trainer. And he trained Matt Heafy when he was here for Soundwave, and when we played Soundwave with them, and he is apparently a massive fan of the Africa cover.
Yeah, wow. Who isn't, man? I mean, that cover's probably the best cover I've ever heard.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Apparently the Toto guys like it as well. So, yeah.
There's your evidence.
They were I can't remember. It was like Letterman or one of those big shows, and apparently it was spoken about.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can get your music mentioned on blabbermouth.net, or you can have it mentioned on the Letterman show.
Yeah. Might have to cut that if I'm wrong. What, the Late Show? One of those shows. Yeah.
The Late Show. The Late Show. Mike, when your love of metal and golf combine, it comes out with a little initiative called the Metal Masters.
That's very true.
Could you tell us about Metal Masters?
Well, the Metal Masters was birthed from a bunch of people that play in metal bands that also play golf averagely, and just wanted to get around and just have a couple of little comps every year, maybe the biannual Metal Masters. So, yeah, well, it's great. So it's just a platform to get a bunch of like-minded musos and people into music out there, just hitting a few balls around and having fun. So, got the likes of, ex-members of certain bands in there, which is pretty fun. So, yeah, enjoying that now. It's a new thing. So we hope to get it out there and get a bunch of people in there and have a bit of fun.
Sensational. Very good.
So Average Joe's Golf League.
Brilliant. Sense. Sounds right up my alley. I'll have to hit you up for an entry.
Absolutely. I think I already invited you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Told these cunts to be fucking quiet.
I like telling them off.
Asserts some authority.
How dare you ask me that question? Were you trying to get out of me?
Yes, how old were you when you were broken in?
Well, I don't know how I should answer that. I still remember it actually. I actually wrote an article, like a personal essay about it for my studies at uni a couple of years ago. It was a school assembly when I was a wee tacker at Jollymont Primary, and it was one of the, really small school, so I think all the assemblies were just in the library, they just didn't need that much space.
Yeah.
And at the end of the assembly, it was they introduced this guy with his guitar, and he played a little bit, and whoever was running the assembly just sort of said, put your hand up if you want to stay back and kind of check out the guitar and touch it and ask the guitar man some questions. And so I put my hand up and I stayed back, and obviously that was a ploy to kind of see which kids were interested in music.
Absolutely.
And guitar. So having done that, my parents enrolled me in the guitar program, so I did 2 years of that. So I was 11 at the time. So very impressive. How old am I now? It's been a few years. Just playing guitar.
Just a few years.
Just a few.
A seasoned professional. If I've ever seen one. Oh, dude, that's awesome. Yeah, fuck. Personal perspective, I remember being on holiday down in Malloy Island, just like a little part of Augusta, basically. And there were these older kids there, and they were full hippies. They were doing this and that, and playing Stairway to Heaven and yada yada yada. And this guy just came up and he put the guitar in my hands and he goes, "This song that I was playing, I'm going to teach you how to play it." It was just the rude notes, right?
Yeah, right.
And yeah, I was hooked.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna go and play this at school and show all my friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, just wish that I'd been a bit more sort of. I wish I'd stood up for myself a bit more and said, "No, I really want a guitar." and this is what I want to be doing.
More.
Yeah, because
It's a very impressionable age.
totally.
I mean, I was the same though. I think when I was in my like early teens, maybe like 14 or something, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to, get up to no good with me mates. But then when I was like,
Throw rocks on tin roofs and shit.
yeah, exactly. But come like 15, 16, I was like, actually, I might give it another crack. And from there on, I was pretty hardcore into it. So
Good on you for having that persistence, man.
it very easily could have, because I remember actually like saying to mum and dad, like, I want to sell it. I want to sell the guitar. Because like, I thought like, if I can get like $100 or something, I could buy like a video game or something. He's better than playing stupid guitar. And mum was like, no, you're not selling it. You'll come back to it. You might come back to it. And I'm fucking glad she
Smart.
she put her foot down with that one.
Very smart.
Going back, craziest moments from my old bands. There's been a few blood spilled at quite a few of my old band's shows. One of my favourite memories probably is not once but twice having my mate Aaron split his face open on the foldback monitors.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so, the man likes to get into music, and I greatly respect that about the man.
Aaron Evans.
Yeah. Loves to get into it, and at that time, just so happened that, he went for the big headbang right in the front row, smashed himself just above the eye on the foldback wedge, and, arcing blood like out of a fucking anime, It was like some Ninja Scroll shit.
The things we do for love, hey?
Yeah. And that happened not once but twice. Even now, like my old man still, if I talk to my dad, he'll still be like, man, you remember that time when that guy split his face open? So still comes up. Aaron, love you, mate. Yeah. The funny story about that one, I'm probably going to get some people in trouble here, but so we did the sound check on that one, and then it was like, honest to God, like 6 or 7 hours before we were going to play. We were in Scarborough. James Bond just came out, and I was like, fuck it, let's go watch James Bond. So literally the whole band got in the car and went down and watched No Time to Die.
So was that at Inaloo?
At Inaloo, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Went in, watched the whole movie, came back, and still had a fucking hour and a half before we went on stage.
That's not a bad way to spend, That's pretty cool. Sure beats standing in the crowd and drinking too much and
I don't know,
sacrificing your own performance, right?
Yeah, there's an element of that, but there's, I don't know, you gotta keep yourself fresh. You don't want to burn your ears out or anything like that, You gotta bring the fire, man. You can't bring the fire if you're clapped out from just hours and hours of double kicks and blasts and harsh cymbals and this and that, So yeah, I just threw it out there, and the guys were like, yeah, you know what, I haven't seen that yet. We're on.
Bond, James Bond. Shake it, not stir it.
Roner.